Hello AAC Universe and welcome to History of. I'm your host and resident superhero nerd Aaron Waller, and in this series we do a deep dive of various comic book characters, both heroes and villains, and give a little bit of insight into who they are and why they do what they do. And in today's video we're going to be shedding some light on the very popular Spider-Man villain who's getting his very first live action appearance in the upcoming sequel Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and that's the character himself, Carnage. But before we get started, we'd like to do as Joey's calling paying some bills, and that's where we recommend checking out animatedapparelcompany.com for all your awesome nerdy merch from Marvel, DC, Star Wars, anime, gaming, and so much more. We even have some awesome Carnage and Venom merch there, so go ahead and check it out. And even use my special promo code Aaron20 to get 20% off your order, add some more stuff to your cart, and save some more money. Now let there be some Carnage, and let's get started. Carnage was created by David Michelini and Eric Larson and would first appear in the Amazing Spider-Man number 360, though his human counterpart, Cletus Cassidy, would appear a year prior in the Amazing Spider-Man number 344. We'll get into the evolution of how these two characters came together in just a few minutes, but ultimately what it boils down to is Carnage is a symbiote very much like Venom, but way worse. Carnage has a lot of the same abilities of both Spider-Man and Venom, including speed, stamina, reflexes, healing abilities, wall crawling, web slinging, and so much more. But Carnage is even more powerful than Spidey and Venom combined. One key difference in the Carnage symbiote, however, is he has tentacle-like appendages all over his body that he can use during combat as weapons or shapeshift into any weapons he wants, constrain his enemies, and basically use it as an extension of his body. Now, when talking about Carnage's history, we first have to talk about his human counterpart, Cletus Cassidy, just to get an idea of how ruthless and brutal this character can be. Cletus Cassidy was inspired by the DC comic character the Joker, and just like his counterpart, has a varying history as most comic characters do, but one thing is clear: he had a rough and abusive childhood. It's said that Cassie was born in the Ravencroft Institute to a mother with paranoid schizophrenia. Unfortunately, she would die during childbirth, and Cletus would be sent to live with an older woman who many have said is his grandmother. It's here that he would receive some physical abuse by his caregiver, and Cletus would eventually end up killing her. He would then go to a foster family where his violent tendencies would continue, and he would witness his foster father killing his foster mother. But another version of this same story says that Cletus would be living with his biological father, who then killed his foster mother. Either way, it's not pretty. Cletus would then go to live at the St. S's Home for Boys, an orphanage that he would get bullied at and eventually burn down, murdering the administration inside. As an adult, Cletus would become a notorious cannibalistic serial killer and eventually arrested and sentenced to 11 consecutive life sentences at Rikers Island. And this is where he would meet Eddie Brock, detached from the Venom symbiote in Amazing Spider-Man number 344. Needless to say, Cassidy and Brock didn't get along very well and would have several altercations. Cassidy would eventually decide to murder Brock with a shiv, but is stopped by the Venom symbiote, which returned to Eddie. After reuniting with Venom, Brock breaks out of jail and causes a lot of damage. And here's where a lot of the extra bits of weird start to seep in. Unbeknownst to Brock, the Venom symbiote that returned to help him break out of prison was pregnant and gave birth during the breakout. The Venom spawn would bond with Cletus Cassidy via a cut on his hand and enter his bloodstream, and Cassidy would name himself Carnage and would appear in Spider-Man number 360 in 1992. And this is where the true bloodbath begins, as Carnage goes on a citywide killing spree before being confronted by Spider-Man. Though Spidey isn't able to stop Carnage alone and gets some much needed help from the Fantastic Four and former cellmate Eddie Brock as Venom. Eventually, a reluctant Venom would team up with Spider-Man after much deliberation and take down Carnage by capturing and destroying him. They would then imprison Cassidy at the Vault and eventually take him back home to the Ravencroft Institute. Now, Carnage would go through various versions, including Maximum Carnage, a very popular comic where a doctor at Ravencroft Institute attempts to cure Cassidy and draws his blood. This triggers the return of the thought-to-be-destroyed Carnage to reappear, and go on to recruit an army of supervillains including Shriek, Demogoblin, Carrion, and Doppelganger to take over New York City. Carnage even goes on to become a mommy just like Venom, but this is only because the symbiotes produce asexually once a generation. But Carnage eventually gives birth to another symbiote by the name of Toxin, who is considered to be the most powerful of the symbiotes. Carnage would later even have a more bizarre story when he not only fights but also bonds with the Merc with a Mouth Deadpool. Talk about crazy is as crazy does. He would then go on a hiatus for about 6 years and return with his own storyline simply called Carnage, where the symbiote would take a new host before returning back to Cassidy. And Cletus Cassidy's first live-action appearance was in the post-credit scene of 2018's Venom, but he'll be the main villain of the sequel Venom, Let There Be Carnage, both times being portrayed by Woody Harrelson. So those are some of the major things you need to know about Carnage. His lore goes even further, even crazier, so if you want to check him out, I recommend reading some of his comics. They are really crazy, but he's definitely a character worth looking into. But I do want to hear from you down in the comment section if you learned anything you may have not have known otherwise in this video. Also, let me know of any future characters you may want to see on this series. And also, while you're down there, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos from me or the rest of the AAC team, as we have new content daily. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it and hope to see you in the next video.